Hari Om, we can get started.
सहना भवतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनावतीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। गीता ध्यानम्। ॐ पार्थाय प्रतिबोधितां भगवता नारायणेन स्वयं व्यासेन ग्रथितां पुराणमुनिना मध्ये महाभारतम् अद्वैतामृतवर्षिणीं भगवतीम् अष्टादशाध्यायिनीम् अम्ब त्वामनुसन्धधामि भगवद्गीते भवद्वेषिणे। नमोऽस्तु ते व्यासविशालबुद्धे पुल्लारविन्दायतपत्रनेत्रा येन त्वया भारततल्यपूर्णः प्रज्वालितो ज्ञानमयप्रदीपः प्रपन्नपारिजाताय पुत्रवैत्रेकपाणये ज्ञानमुद्राय कृष्णाय गीतामृतदुहे नमः। सर्वोपनिषदो गावो दुग्धा गोपालनन्दनः पार्थो वत्सः सुधीर्भोक्ता दुग्धं गीतामृतं महत् वसुदेवसुतं देवं कंसचाणूरमर्दनं देवकी परमानन्दं कृष्णं वन्दे जगद्गुरुं। भीष्मद्रोणतटा जयद्रथजला गान्धारनीलोत्पला शल्यग्राहवती कृपेण वहनी कर्णेन वेलाकुला अश्वत्थामविकर्णघोरमकरा दुर्योधनावर्तिनी सोत्तीर्णा खलु पाण्डवैरननति कैवर्तककेशवः पाराशर्यवशः सरोजममलं गीतार्थगन्धोत्कटं नानाख्यानककेसरं हरिकथा सम्बोधनाबोधितम् लोके षड्जनसत्परैरहरहः पेपीयमानं मुदा भूयाद् भारतपङ्कजं कलिमल प्रध्वंसिन श्रेयसे। मूकं करोति वाचालं पङ्गुं लङ्घयति गिरिं यत्कृपातमहं वन्दे परमानन्दमाधवम्। यं ब्रह्मा वरुणेन्द्ररुद्रमरुतः स्तुन्वन्ति दिव्यैस्तवैः वेदैः साङ्गपदक्रमोपनिषदे गायन्ति यं सामगाः। ध्यानावस्थिततद्गतेन मनसा पश्यन्ति यं योगिना यस्यान्तं न विदुःसुरासुरगणा देवाय तस्मै नमः देवाय तस्मै नमः देवाय तस्मै नमः।
Hari Om. So today we are doing this revision of the second part of chapter 2. and we will cover Buddhi Yoga. Now, actually, chapter 2, especially Buddhi Yoga, one session for revision is not enough. Chapter 2, being the summary of the Bhagavad Gita in prospect, it's actually to be covered on its own completely, all the verses. That's the ideal way to do it. But still, we are doing this so that we can cover the crucial verses and some concepts. So this section, which we covered last time in chapter 2 of chapter 2, it primarily deals with Atma Vidya and Swadharma Vidya. That is what we saw. And that is called Sankhya Yoga. Sankhya refers to Upanishad. It comes from numerical, the word Sankhya. And Sankhya is the knowledge that is given, that is listed out, that is given in the Upanishads. The section primarily that deals with action perfection. Once you have the knowledge that is given in the Upanishads and you have received it as information, and then you get into the practical aspect of it, which is the action aspect of it. That section is called Buddhi Yoga. And Buddhi Yoga is nothing but another name for Karma Yoga. Buddhi Yoga, because karma is done with a particular attitude. Karma done just like an action is nothing but karma. But with attitude correction, the quality of the action changes. The nature of the action is altered. And such an action becomes a preparation for progressing in the spiritual path. And we will see what is this change in the nature of quality of action in due course. So now Bhagavan starts the teaching of Buddhi Yoga. And he says in verse 39, we will recite verse 39.
Esha te vihita sankhye buddhiryoge vimam shrutu buddhya yukto yaya partha karma bandham prahasyasi.
So basically Bhagavan is saying this which has been taught to you till now, up until now, Arjuna, is wisdom concerning Sankhya. Esha te bihita Sankhye buddhi, Sankhya buddhi. Now listen, Shrinu, to the wisdom concerning yoga, buddhir yoge. Having known which, yuktaha, having acquired this buddhir yoge, O Partha, you shall cast off all the bonds that are generated or created through action, the bonds of action. Karma bandham, bonds of action, prahasyasi, you shall cast off. So when the means of information is perfect, it becomes knowledge. And that is how Sankhya Yoga, the yoga of knowledge. And when that means of knowledge is perfect, it becomes direct knowledge or wisdom. Information that is pending discovery, that has not been discovered, but it is just information, that is referred to as Paroksha Jnana. Paroksha is para plus aksha. Para is something which is other than. Aksha is the eyes. Anything that is not seen by your eyes, anything that is perceived other than my own eyes, which is nothing but information, that is Paroksha Jnana. And direct experiential knowledge, which comes through discovery, where knowledge gets established through experience, that is called Aparoksha Jnana. Aparoksha Jnana. And Bhagavan says, till now, I have given you information pertaining to Atma Vidya and Swadharma Vidya. We saw that in the previous satsang. And you have Paroksha Jnana. Now I shall give you the Buddhi, which will convert your Paroksha Jnana to Aparoksha Jnana. That Buddhir Yoge, the Buddhi or knowledge pertaining to yoga, which then will lead to experiential or direct knowledge. This placement of this word, Buddhi, in between Sankhya and Yoga, that is very, very interesting. Eshate bihita sankhye buddhir yoge. Sankhya and buddhi. And we discussed it when we covered the chapter also. It's like a light that is on the threshold of a house. Like a light which is on the threshold lights up the inside as well as the outside. This light of knowledge, this buddhi, pertains to both the Sankhya, which is Atma Vidya and Swadharma Vidya, and the Yoga, which is Buddhi Yoga or Karma Yoga, through which we attain perfection, through which we attain the experiential knowledge or Aparoksha Jnana. Buddhi Yoga is nothing but Ishvara Arpana Buddhi and Prasada Buddhi. So we can actually say as a formula, Buddhi Yoga is equal to Ishvara Arpana Buddhi plus Prasada Buddhi. Ishvara is Lord, Bhagwan. Arpana is offering. And Buddhi is attitude. Any action that is done with the attitude of offering to the Lord is Ishvara Arpana Buddhi. Prasada is acceptance. And Buddhi is attitude. Anything that is received post-action, there will be a result. Always. Some result or the other. Every action has an outcome. And that outcome, accepting and receiving that as a benevolence from the higher ideal, from the Lord, from the Bhagavan, to whom you devoted that very action, is called Prasada Buddhi. Prasada is also equanimity. So other than benevolence, it also means equanimity. So receiving whatever comes with equanimous attitude is Prasada Buddhi. So looking for a higher ideal in everything and anything that we do, whatever we may do, if we devote it to that higher ideal, Bhagavan manifests in that higher ideal. So even for non-believers, even for skeptics, if you can just think of a higher ideal, because it's much more easier to relate to the higher ideal. Like we discussed later on also in some of the other chapters, when the avatara, the nirguna and the saguna, right? So it is easier to relate to the saguna. That is why we have the idols. Idol is nothing but an higher ideal, because it is easier to relate to the idols. So many idols in Hinduism. So relating to the higher ideal is a lot more easier than relating to the nirguna sakshatkara. So doing any action that we do with any choice of higher ideal that you have in mind, that nirguna will manifest in the saguna. So Sri Krishna now says, please listen to this, Arjuna, Tvamam Shrinu. And why? Because if you listen to this, Yukto Yaya Buddhaya, equipped with this knowledge, Karma Bandham Prahasyasi. You will be able to cast aside, you will be able to put an end to the bondage that has been brought about by action. Karma Bandha. And what is this bondage? How does it come about? So I love this story. I recited in the satsang earlier, okay? So this Airbus A380 new flight, the first ever time that it is going to take off from the ground. And Airbus is very proud about it and invites all the CEOs that contributed to the making of this aircraft. As you all know, there are so many parts in the aircraft, from the engine to the leather seats or whatever seats, to the various, the air conditioning vents, to the software that runs it, to the wheels, the tires, the rubber, all that has been used to make this aircraft. All CEOs of those firms are invited. And there is a gala afternoon, everyone is celebrating. And then the pilot comes on line and he says, thank you very much for participating in this occasion. We are now going to take off. And what happens next is that one by one, all the CEOs find some excuse here. Some say that, hey, you never told us that we are going to fly. So I just planned for this amount of time. I need to go. Another says, I got a call, urgent call just now, I have to go. Everyone leaves the aircraft except one CEO. So the captain comes and says, sir, looks like all of them have left except you. And it's pretty obvious that no one wanted to be in this first ever flight. You know, it's such a huge risk. How come you are here? And this gentleman says that, see, I am the CEO of the firm that designed the software that is there in your cockpit. And if I know my company well, this flight ain't going to take off in the first attempt. So, you know, this is the bondage that comes out of action. So on one side, the bondage of the CEOs who were scared and left. And on the other side, the bondage of the CEO is so confident of the poor quality of code that his own company has supplied that he knows that nothing is going to happen to me. So that bondage born out of karma, bondage born out of action, that essentially comes from the impurities in the mind and intellect. Like the poor quality. So this CEO says that I know the quality of the software is not perfect. It's not going to work. Which means what? The quality is poor. So imperfect quality, because of which the flight will not take off. It is supposed to take off. Similarly, imperfect quality, impurity in the mind, in the software of our body, mind, intellect paradigm. What is the software? Where does it reside? It resides in the mind and the intellect. If there is impurity in that, if there is chitta ashuddhi means impurity in the mind. If there is chitta ashuddhi, then there is bondage through action, karma bandha. And chitta shuddhi is nothing but what is referred to as papa or sin. We don't even have to worry about papa or sin that comes after this life. Papa or sin within this life, which prevents jivan mukti while we are living, liberation while living, is the impurities, the disturbances in our own mind and intellect. And if we don't want this papa or sin, then what do we want? We want nothing but chitta shuddhi, of course, a pure mind and intellect. And that pure mind and intellect comes from Ishvara Arpana Buddhi and Prasada Buddhi. When we get deep into what we are doing, why we are doing, what will we get out of it, all of those thoughts lead to the impurities. And getting rid of those thoughts leads to purity, Chitta Shuddhi. So most people get confused with punya as joy. However, that punya that leads to purity of the mind does not seek joy. So punya can remove papa and papa can remove punya. Like good code is the only thing that will remove bad code in software. Similarly, good thought is the only thing that will remove bad thought. The only way to remove bad thought is to replace it with good thought. And the only way to remove good thought is to replace it with bad thought. The right attitude while performing action releases one from the bondage to the same action, and it leads to purity of the mind and the intellect. The mind and the intellect are not perfect because of these impurities. And we also saw that these impurities are essentially of two types. The type 1 impurity is our reaction to our external environment. Whatever happens around us, which we get exposed through what? Through the input process output mechanism. Through the sense organs and organs of action, we experience and we propagate. Essentially, agitation, restlessness, lack of focus, concentration, lack of alertness, all of these are symptoms that show that the impurities related to external environment. The type 2 impurities are impurities in which our own mind is throwing up negative thoughts. And not only does it throw up negative thoughts within, sometime or the other it gets propagated outside. And these thoughts sully our mental peace from within. And these type 2 impurities, which are imperfections which are within ourselves, are of 6 types. They are called the Shadripus. They are kama, which is desire or wants, or various wants. Krodha, anger. Lobha, greed. moha, delusion, madha, pride, or arrogance, hubris, and matsarya, which is jealousy or envy. And when these impurities are there in our own mind, when we are possessed of these impurities, the knowledge that we gain cannot become experience, it cannot become wisdom, which means the paroksha jnana cannot become aparoksha jnana. And the only way to convert the paroksha jnana to the aparoksha jnana is through buddhi yoga. And what does this karma yoga or buddhi yoga do? For that, we have to first understand what does karma do. So action can be good or bad, or action can be average, mediocre, so-so. Like seeds take time to germinate into a shrub, into a small plant, into a tree, whatever they grow into. Similarly, action also takes time to germinate. It comes out initially, there is an initial result, intermediary result, and final result. So every action will have results in stages. A good action results in good results and leads to the final result, which is happiness. And bad action results in bad results and then leads to a final result, which is unhappiness. The intermediate result, which is in between, which is the good or the bad result, is the punya or the papa. Oftentimes, there is misconception that punya or papa is the final. After we are dead and gone is when punya. No, it's the intermediate result. It's not the final result. So action results in some kind of an intermediate or an immediate result. And that is subtle or unseen. It's also termed as adhrishta in Sanskrit. And then it leads to punya or papa. And then finally leads to happiness or unhappiness. And the happiness or the unhappiness is the final result, which is drishta, which is apparent. Based on the attitude, the mental makeup, the sankalpa, the goals, the statement of purpose, the motive, based on all of this, while doing karma, the result changes to good or bad. So if we are disturbed, my favorite example of playing tennis, if I am disturbed while playing tennis, if I'm worried about the shot that I'm going to play, or if I'm angry about the previous bad shot that I played, or if I'm upset with the brilliant winner that the opponent hit, the chances are that my next few shots are going to be bad shots. But if I am playing it with equanimity, if I'm devoting my every shot to the higher ideal of the game, or to my fitness, or to whatever, and I'm playing for the sake of playing, then the chances are that my shots get more and more and more perfect as I keep playing them. So the result of the action changes based on my own behavioral tendency. More papa comes from more sinful or ignoble tendencies. That is more disturbed mind. And more punya, which is more calmer mind, comes from more meritorious or noble tendencies. And like I said, these papa and punya are nothing but internal calmness, internal peace, or internal disturbances. That's why the famous English term of what you sow, so shall you reap. Moving on to next verse.
Deha vikramanashosti pratyavaya na vidyate swalpamapyasya dharmasya trayate mahato bhayat.
So Bhagavan says that here means what? Here means here in this buddhi yoga, the loss or destruction of the immediate result of karma is not there. Na iha abhikrama nasha asti. The loss or the result of the immediate result of karma is not there. Abhikrama comes from abhikramyate. Abhikramyate iti abhikrama. That which begins immediately after something is abhikrama. The immediate result of action, which is what punya or papa, which we just saw, or the intermediate action, when performed as buddhi yoga, when performed as karma yoga, ishwararpana buddhi, prasada buddhi, then this type of punya, this type of immediate action that follows, result of the good action, because any good action that is performed with ishwararpana buddhi and prasada buddhi is good action. The good result or punya of such an action, that type is not something like purchasing joy. We do action to purchase joy. Most of our actions are meant to purchase joy. And when the purchase process fails, it leads to sorrow. But this type of an action does not result in joy purchasing. It is not lost. Because once you purchase it, you lose the money, Whatever you purchase, what you give for that purchase is gone from you. You get whatever you get in return for giving something. In this case, that does not happen. And Bhagavan says, pratyavayo, the defect due to incomplete or incorrect or improper action. When action is not done exactly as it is supposed to be done, when buddhi yoga is performed, that defect is not there. Often, to continue with my tennis example, you say that when you hit a forehand shot, you have to take the swing completely to the other extreme. When you are thinking about various other things while hitting that shot, it doesn't happen. It will stop short or it will go too long. Like in a cricket shot, if you don't follow through, it's called a follow through in cricket. If you don't follow through properly, a sixer can result in a catch on the boundary line. Bhagavan says that when you perform this with buddhi yoga, in the manner of, with the attitude of buddhi yoga, these defects do not come up. And what are these possible defects in karma yoga? Defects that lead to karma nasha, that leads to improper result, like getting caught out instead of a sixer. So a sequence in operation, in doing, should be followed for most of the actions for correct result. Like for a cricket shot, you have to see how the bowler is approaching, how the action is happening. You have to have a correct backlift. Then you have to come down, hit the ball, follow through. That is the sequence. And not following the correct sequence, if the ball is swinging in one direction and you're hitting in the opposite direction, that will result in bad result. For example, in elections, the example that I used earlier, you get a seat, you canvass, you vote, then there is election, then there is result. What if a candidate starts canvassing after the election is done? That's stupid, right? So there is a sequence for every action, whatever we do. The other type of defect that happens is if you don't follow the sequence. The other is if the action is not done exactly as defined, then it can rebound, it can result in bad result, or it can even cause harm. For example, connecting the, when you're these bomb units, when they dismantle a bomb, if you do the wrong wires, it can actually result in explosion of the bomb. Or suppose you're putting together a dynamite and you connect the wrong wires, it can result in a wrong action. Like in the army, when we were in the army, when you're firing a gun, you have to follow the right sequence. It's very, very important. And we keep checking. There is a checklist and you keep checking it again and again and again, 2 or 3 times before executing the action to ensure that the sequence is followed continuously. In fact, there's a book, called Checklist Manifesto. It's a must read by everybody. It's beautiful. It's a very well written book. So these two weaknesses, which are most commonly there, which result in action not being performed well, are not there in Buddhi Yoga. And Bhagavan continues,
व्यवसायात्मिका बुद्धिः एकीह कुरु नन्दना बहुशाखाह्यनन्ताश्च बुद्धयो व्यवसायिनाम्.
So if these weaknesses are not there, what is there when you perform action with Buddhi Yoga? Here, ekaha, here in Buddhi Yoga, there is Vyavasayatmika. Vyavasayatmika means single-pointedness. So not only does it lead to Chitta Shuddhi, it leads to Chitta Ekagrata. Chitta Ekagrata means focused mind. Concentration, focus, single-pointedness is Vyavasayatmika. Buddhi, determination. The mind and intellect instruments are focused. They are determined. They are not carried away by wants and wishes. They are not carried away by external distractions, nor are they carried away by internal disturbances. Both of these do not affect the mind and intellect. Because why? Because they are intently focused. You will see that when there is high performance, and sport is one of the best things where you can see it. But even when you don't see it, high performance comes often through intense focus. It may not be apparent when your mother is cooking in the kitchen, but when that intense focus is there, the dish is much, much better. Often we say that it is because it was cooked with love. What is love? Love also, the aspect of love also leads to intense focus. When you have bhakti, when you have devotion, which is nothing but love, it leads to intense focus. So that Vyavasayatmika Buddhi, that enables the person not to get distracted by external distractions or internal disturbances. And that is because this yoga, this karma is performed as a worship, Ishvara Arpana Buddhi, as a devotion to the higher ideal, without any expectations for benefit, which is Prasada Buddhi. Duty performed as worship, duty performed without expectations, and following the duty that is performed, whatever comes, receiving it with complete acceptance is called Buddhi Yoga. And when such an attitude is there, then the body, mind, intellect instrument is Vyavasayatmika, determinate, single-pointed. It's like, the previous Prime Minister of India, Dr. Manmohan Singh, was being operated while he was a sitting Prime Minister. And Dr. Ramakant Pandey was the surgeon operating him. Post the surgery, the interviewer asked him, how could you do the sitting Prime Minister? It's a big thing. You must have been extremely nervous. So Dr. Ramakant Panda responded that once the light above the operating table in the OT is switched on, when that bright light comes into focus, then something happens to my mind. It gets fine-tuned. That fine-tuning is Vyavasayatmika. After that, I don't know. It could be Prime Minister, it could be somebody else. It doesn't matter. After that, it is me and the work that is in front of me. That kind of intense focus. And if it is not there, this intense focus, then what is there? Bhagavan says Bahushakha. Bahushakha means many branched. Like a monkey that jumps from branch to branch to branch to branch of various trees in the jungle, the mind jumps from one thought to another thought to a third thought to a fourth thought to infinite thoughts. And Bhagavan says this infinite thoughts, Ananta Buddhayo, endless thoughts of the Avyaya Sainam, of the undetermined person, that prevents the single-pointedness. And only in the case of Vyavasayatmika Buddhi, only in one case, only when you have devoted it to the higher ideal, when you do the action for the higher ideal, is where this single-pointed determination is there. And when such determination is there, when it is not there, then you are wandering. When it is there, what does it enable? Bhagavan continues in the next verse.
Traigunya Vishaya Veda निस्त्रैगुण्यो भवार्जुना निर्द्वन्द्वो नित्यसत्त्वस्थः निर्योगक्षेम आत्मवान्.
Veda Vishaya Traigunya. The section of the Vedas dealing with Karma Kanda, dealing with action, the subject matter of that section is the three gunas. And what the outcomes are there in the realm of the three gunas. Now, I have put these in my notes. I'm not covering them because of lack of time. You can go through my notes. We have gone through them earlier also. And we will go through them again in chapter 14. In chapter 14, Gunatraya Vibhaga Yoga, Bhagavan dwells deeply into the various gunas. And finally, he talks about how do you rise above the gunas. So that is Traigunya Vishaya Veda. And Bhagavan says here now, which is the introduction to the Bhagavad Gita, where he is talking in Sankship about various concepts that he will cover in detail. So this verse is covered in detail in chapter 14. He says, seek none of them, O Arjuna. Nistraigunyo Bhavarjuna. Seek none of them. Attitude of wanting none of these while performing action. And how do we do that? Bhagavan gives 4 tips to do that. The first tip is Nirdvandvaha. Dvandva means duality. What are the dualities? The dualities that Bhagavan referred to, we saw in the last satsang, last verse which we covered. Sukha dukkhe samekritva labha labhav jaya jayav. Sukha dukkha, joy, sorrow. Labha labha, profit and loss. Jaya jaya, victory and defeat. These extremities and all other extremities that are enveloped, that are covered under the umbrella of these extremities. Keep your mind free from dwelling in these extremities, in these pairs of opposites. Dvandvaha is pairs of opposites. And do not be shaken by them. Be equipoised in their presence because they are going to be there. Profit, loss will be there. Victory, defeat will be there. Joy, sorrow will be there. In their presence, be equipoised. Nirdvandvaha. The second tip Bhagavan gives is Nitya Sattvastaha. Nitya Sattvastho. Nitya Sattvastaha. Sattvastaha in this context means firmness, established, having that inner strength, being firmly rooted. And rooted in what? Rooted in that focus, rooted in that intent focus, in that Vyavasayatmika Buddhi. Be firm and determined in your resolve. And it takes practice. So when I play tennis, I have to, shot after shot, don't think about the outcome of the shot. Don't worry about that I messed up the previous shot. You have to keep telling yourself. Keep rehearsing, keep telling, keep rehearsing, keep telling. It takes intense practice. That's the only way it comes. And that's what Bhagavan says that we have. Nitya Sattvastha. Always be firm in that resolve. Always keep making sure that you are stuck to that resolve. And sometimes it requires taking a vow that yes, I swear that I will be resolved. And the third tip he gives is Nir-Yoga-Kshema. Yoga-Kshema means acquiring and preserving. Yoga is what we do not have that we want to gain. Alabha dasya labha. What is not there, you want to acquire. Effort to gain something that one does not have is called yoga. In this context, yoga has so many meanings. There are 84 types of yogas that are covered in our Shastras. In this context, acquiring, even if you see Ashtanga Yoga when you do, initially when you do, you cannot have this correct pose, the prescribed pose. And you have to make an effort to acquire that pose. You don't have it when you begin with it. When you sit on meditation, mind wanders all over the place. You have to make an effort to acquire that single-pointedness, focused mind, which then helps you get into Samadhi. So acquiring what is not there. Like we said, sannyasa is nothing but relinquishing, giving up the lower to attain the higher. In this context, that is yoga. Shema is labha dasya rakshanam, preserving, securing what we already possess, what we already have, what has already been gained. And Bhagavan says, do not keep your mind occupied in yoga and in kshema. Do not worry about what you don't have and what you are going to acquire. Do not worry about what you have and what you could lose. Do not keep that as your goal while you are performing action and also in your life. Do what you have to do without having this as your goal. And by what? The fourth tip, if you don't have this as your goal, then what do? Atmavan. Your mind and intellect fully, completely, with intent focus in the Supreme, in the Paramatma, with bhakti, with devotion. If you don't do that, Bhagavan says, if you have not reached that stage, then Arjuna, your eligibility is only in Karma Yoga. The eligibility of a person who is seeking fulfillment that come from the three gunas. What are the three gunas? The Sattvic guna, the Rajasic guna, the Tamasic guna. So when we are seeking fulfillment in the realm of the three gunas, then your eligibility is only in Karma Yoga. And that is what he covers in verse 47.
Karmanyevadhikaraste ma phaleshu kadachana ma karma phalahe durpuhu ma te sangostva karmani.
So often misconstrued, as perform actions without expectation. That we already covered. Bhagavan has already talked about it. That perform actions without expectation. In this verse, Bhagavan is not saying that. Bhagavan is saying your eligibility, you are authorized only for that. You are not authorized for anything else. For you, whose mind has these shadripus, at whatever level, okay, the 6 impurities, for that kind of a person, for you, the person who is seeking satisfaction in the realm of the three gunas, for that person. And we have to judge. There's nobody who needs to come and tell us. We have to judge for ourselves how much sullied our own minds are. That is for us to figure out. How much disturbed our own minds are. We should know. Our insight should tell us. And even if it is disturbed even a little bit, Bhagavan says, Adhikara eva karmani. Your eligibility, your prerogative, your privilege, your claim, your right is only in action or work. The eligibility is only for Karma Yoga. Because only that will bring about the transformation so that the mind and intellect get fine-tuned towards the pursuit of knowledge and devotion. And later on, when Bhagavan covers Karma Yoga in detail, he'll say that. When he covers Bhakti Yoga in detail, he'll start with saying that you have to do Karma Yoga. Even when he's talking about Bhakti Yoga in chapter 6, Bhagavan first says, remember, Karma Yoga is most important. Because without doing Karma Yoga, it is not possible to do Bhakti Yoga. You will sit in meditation, but you will not succeed. Your mind will go all over the place. One has to practice anything and everything. Bhagavan says you have to do Karma Yoga. You have to get an intense, you have to become a yogi. You have to become a Yoga Ruda. Established in Karma Yoga for you to be able to progress. And while performing your duties, he says, while you're doing Karma Yoga, beware. He gives a small little caution. Don't let the mind and intellect stray to the thought of the result. Because that is not your right also. Ma kadachana phaleshu. Not at any point in time does your right exist in phaleshu, in the fruits, in the result, in the outcome. If you're running a marathon and we start thinking about what will happen after we cross, for a period of time, yes, absolutely, it can be a motivator. If we don't complete the run, then there is no prize for an incomplete run. You have to complete in order to get it. So while performing the action, you can't start dreaming. If you Google some of these races, you will see that some people start celebrating victory when they're running a race. You start celebrating before you've crossed the tape, and just for your shock, somebody else has actually cut the tape before you. And Bhagavan says, Ma karma phala hetur buhu. Let not the fruits of action be your motive. Like a boat that floats in water, all water around it, and the small piece which is made of floatable material, in the olden days wood, right? But no water is allowed to get into it. Similarly, humans live in this world of desires, but that should not possess them. If water gets into a boat, if it starts leaking, you immediately throw that water out. Otherwise, it will possess that boat. And once that water possesses that boat in the ocean, the boat will sink. Similarly, a mind and intellect that is possessed by desires sinks in the world of desires, the samsara. And when the fruit of action is not your motive, so this is for the person who is doing it in the right way. At that time, then also you have to be careful, which is when there is no selfishness. Then the risk is that such a person gets disinterested in what one is doing. So Bhagavan says, Mate sangotsva karmani. Not for you, Mate. Sangotsva, sanga, attachment. Akarmani, in inaction. Do not develop attachment in inaction. So what is Bhagavan saying here? Bhagavan is saying a mind intellect that is selfish, that has the rigor to do action. Why? Because I'm going to get something. So I'm going to act. I'm going to get something. I'm going to act. To get that something. It is focused. But when that happens, the punya gets, you give away the whatever punya you have gained and get whatever result you wanted. It gets spent for the pleasures. It is currency. Punya becomes currency. Not in enabling the mind intellect to be pure. However, a mind and intellect that is not selfish, there is a risk that it shies away from action. It does not have the rigor to act. That risk is there. It must have the rigor to act. If it does not have the rigor to act, then whatever action, either the action doesn't happen or it does not happen to perfection. Such a mind and intellect, there is a risk that it lapses into tamas, into laziness, into inactivity. And that then leads to imperfect action, which is swadharma paripalada, which then leads to swadharma nasha, which is dereliction of duty. Perfection in action is one of the hallmark of Karma Yoga. It will come now, a little later. This perfection in action indicates that the person is not lazy. Akarmani also means imperfect action, in addition to inaction. So perfection is not driven by desire, it is driven by worship. And when does the result of the action manifest? Does it manifest before doing the action? Does it manifest during the action? Does it manifest after the action? So if I deploy my mental faculties while I'm working, while performing the action, in the present, if I do that, then what will come can get impacted because I'm not fully involved in what I'm doing. It's as simple as that. Bhagavan is telling us such simple things. And the performance will not have that excellence, that beauty. We can't obviously think about the result while writing an exam. If you're just before writing the exam, during the exam, then that is called being nervous about the result. And it will impact the result in a detrimental manner. 2 stages of work normally. The planning stage, in which we collect data, we gain past experiences, culling them, we identify the steps to the goal, we do all of that. At that stage, one has to think, one has to plan, one has to strategize, one has to even think of what the desired result is. But while executing, the second stage of action, that happens after entry into the field of the action. Once you have got into the field of the action, any thought about the future, that will be counterproductive. And we cheat ourselves of the final good result by thinking about that result. And Bhagavan continues. We'll go to verse 48.
Yogastha kuru karmani sangam tyaktva dhananjaya siddhya siddhyo samo bhutva samatvam yoga uchyate.
Kuru karmani, perform your actions, perform your duties. Bhagavan says, how? Yogastha, steadfast in yoga. Steadfast in yoga means what? Steadfast in Ishwararpana Buddhi, Prasada Buddhi. Like I said earlier, keep reinforcing. That is being steadfast. The attitude of Karma Yoga firmly established in the mind and intellect, and firmly established comes from reinforcement. Without reinforcement, which is called a foundation, right? Without that reinforcement, the building cannot be firmly established. So, yogastha, steadfast in yoga. And sangam tyaktva. Tyaktva, abandoning. Sangam, attachment. Attachment to the what? To the burden of doing, to the burden of ego, to the burden of the result. This attachment is nothing but, we have seen this earlier also, attachment is nothing but I plus I want. I and I want is attachment. And Bhagavan says, Sangam Tyaktva, give up the attachment to the I. And he says, Phalam Tyaktva, give up the attachment to the I want. Both of these give up. Tyaktva is give up. And Siddhya Siddhyo, Siddhi Asiddhi. Siddhi is success, Asiddhi is failure. In success and failure, be Sama Bhutva. Bhutva is being, Samaha means the same, equanimous. How does one find out whether the mind and intellect is Samaha? The disturbances are minimal. Like I said, we should know. We have to find out how sullied my mind is, how disturbed my mind is. When these go away, we experience that serenity, that calmness. And once you experience that thing which you feel, then you seek that same. When you aim a gun and shoot at the target, once you hit the bullseye, then you have to redo what you did. That's what archers and shooters do. Once you get it, all you have to do is repeat, 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 repeat. Because the minute you change a little bit here and there, it goes somewhere else. So once you have hit bullseye, once you have known, then you stick to it. Then you hold on to it firmly. And that also reinforces. And Bhagavan says, this evenness, Samatvam Yoga Uchyate. Uchyate is called. Samatvam, this evenness, is called yoga. So actually, Bhagavan is giving a beautiful definition, and Sage Vyasa through Bhagavan is giving a beautiful definition of yoga. Action done with the inner equipoise and serenity, without attachment to result, being balanced in extremities that the environment throws upon us, is yoga. Samatvam Yoga Uchyate. And this equipoise will ensure that we manage our obstacles. Either we go over them or we go around them. Like a river that goes over the rocky bed. Similarly, we'll go through the rocks of life. And Bhagavan continues in verse 50.
Buddhi yukto jahatiha ubhe sukrita dushkriti tasmad yogaya yujyasva yoga karma kaushalam.
Here Bhagavan says, one who is endowed with the attitude, Buddhi Yukto, the person who has attained this attitude of Karma Yoga, one who has perfected Ishwararpana Buddhi and Prasada Buddhi, and one who has Jahatiha, gives up that person, jahatiha, gives up in this life. What does that person give up in this life? Ubhe sukrita dushkrite. Ubhe, both, sukrita dushkrite, both punya and papa. Punya and papa are connected to this jiva bhava, the individuality, the sense of what? The I plus I want. And that results in selfish desires. And one who has the karma yoga buddhi, that person does not function in this realm of I plus I want, in this realm of individuality. And by that is able to give up this concept of merit and sin, this concept of punya and papa. And Bhagavan says, Tasmad yujyasva yogaya. Therefore, Tasmad yujyasva, devote yourself, become inspired. To what? To yoga, karma yoga. And why is that? Yoga karmashu kausalam. When you do that, it results in excellence in action. It brings excellence to action. It brings dexterity to action. Kaushalam means dexterity. So when this yoga is performed and when this yoga joins with karma, it changes the texture of the karma. It changes the texture of the very nature of action. A person sitting in the Himalayas with orange robes, thinking about, so who's coming? What is that person giving me? What is the gift am I getting? Oh, this man looks so strong. This girl looks so beautiful. But orange robes, Himalayas. Whereas there is a cobbler in the busy street of MG Road, crossing of Brigade Road, MG Road in Bangalore. And that person is focused intensely in the work and does a beautiful job of stitching up that shoe. Who is the yogi? It's very obvious. It's the latter who is the yogi. Yoga converts action into excellent action. And it converts action from something which is binding to something which is liberating. That is nothing but yoga karmashu kaushalam. So Bhagavan has given two beautiful definitions of yoga. One is samatvam yoga uchyate, evenness of the mind intellect or equipoise in yoga is yoga. And the other is yoga karmasu kaushalam. Dexterity in action is yoga. Now this leads to Arjuna asking a question, which is in verse 54.
Arjuna uvacha stita pragnasya ka bhasha samadishtasya keshava stitadi kim prabhasheta kimasita vrajeta kim.
Stita pragyasya, that person whose wisdom is established. So Bhagavan has just talked about, being established. And when you are established, knowledge that you have heard from me becomes experiential knowledge. Sankhya becomes buddhi. All that Bhagavan has told him. So Arjuna says, this person, this Stita Pragya, and this Stita Pragya can be in two states. The first state is Samadhistasya. Samadhistasya is one, the Stita Pragya who is in Samadhi, who is absorbed in this wisdom. Like when we play a beautiful shot, we just soak in that shot, that's soaking in. One who is in that state of absorption, and Stitadi, one who is out of that state of absorption. So Arjuna says, when this person is Stita Pragyasya, when this person is Samadhitasya, in the state of absorption, what are his characteristics? Ka bhasha. What are his lakshana? Lakshana is, the characteristics. And how do you describe him? That's his first question. Arjuna's all of this is Arjuna's first question. But within his first question, there are 4 questions. And then he says, when this person is out of samadhi, out of absorption, out of meditation, out of being intently focused, when Roger Federer is out of the tennis court, when he is in the tennis court, he is in samadhi. That is why you see those beautiful, brilliant shots, yoga karmasu kaushalam. When he's out of court, out of the tennis court, when he's out of that samadhi, sthitadi, established person, but now out of samadhi. At that time, kim prabhashita, what does he speak? Is the question. The actual question is kim prabhashita, what does he speak? But it is implied that what I speak comes from what I think. And also how I speak. So how do I think? What do I think? How do I speak? What do I speak? Like those of you who follow Federer, people rave about how his conduct is. Not in the court, outside the court. Right? So out of samadhi, how does he do? Arjuna says, for me, I am torn between these extremities. I am now, right now, he's in the most torn state of mind. How does this person speak? The second thing is kim asita. Literal translation means how does he sit? But that doesn't mean, how is he sitting? No, that's not the, it means how does he quieten himself or herself while interacting, while being in the humdrum. How is the person still managing to be quiet? And vrajeta kim, how does he walk about? How does he go about his work? How does he interact? How does she engage with the world around her, with this object world? Re-engage. So these are the 4 questions he's asking. And Bhagavan answers.
Sri Bhagavanuvacha Prajahati yada kaman sarvan partha manogatan atmanyevatmana tushtaha sita prajnastadochyate.
Atmanyevatmana tushtaha. So Bhagavan says, when a person transcends desires and completely casts off desires at the time of working, while doing karma, and the person is entirely satisfied in the self by the self, then this person is a sthita pragya, a person of steady wisdom. So Bhagavan is essentially saying that when this person is in samadhi, when Roger Federer is in the tennis court, at that time, how is his nature? Number 1, he transcends desires. He is not thinking about victory and loss. He is not thinking about the prize that he is going to get. He is not worried about the poor shot that he hit or gloating over the excellent shot that he hit. None of these, none of the extremities. He transcends all of them. Otherwise, what will happen? He will not be able to focus. He will not be able to be in that vyavasayatmika buddhi, not be able to meditate. Second thing Bhagavan says is, he does not focus on the result while working. If he focuses on the result while working, the mind will start wandering to the result. That 2 people racing close to each other, the person who has started thinking that he has won without crossing the tape, suddenly discovers that the last step, the other guy just lunged forward and took the victory from him, because he has already started celebrating. And third thing Bhagavan says is, derives absolute complete satisfaction and is fulfilled in the self, by the self. Meaning the person is not dependent on the external environment, not dependent on the surroundings to find satisfaction. The person finds satisfaction within. When a human being becomes conscious of an object, it becomes a thought. Like I said, if I say camel now, none of you is thinking about a camel. Now I have uttered the word camel. What comes to your mind? A camel. There's no connection with where we are sitting, what we are doing. So when you become conscious of an object, it becomes your thought, which means thought is equal to that object plus consciousness. So it implies mathematically that consciousness is thought minus the object, and thought minus object is thoughtlessness. In samadhi, the person has these characteristics. In this state, the person is not caught up in the body, mind, intellect paradigm that we talked about earlier. Not caught up with that. Samadhi is also described as samyak adhanam. Samyak means very well, excellently. Is fully, complete. Dhanam is placing, established. Placing oneself fully, excellently is called samadhi. And Bhagavan continues with the answer to Arjuna's question. We will recite 56 and 57 verses together.
दुःखेष्वनुद्विग्नमनाः सुखेषु विगतस्पृहः वीतरागभयक्रोधः तदीर्मुनिरुच्यते यः सर्वत्रानभिस्नेहः ततत्प्राप्य शुभाशुभम् नाभिनन्दति न द्वेष्टि तस्य प्रज्ञा प्रतिष्ठिता.
So what was Arjuna's question? Arjuna's question was, when this person is out of samadhi, when Roger Federer is out of the tennis court, how does he, the first question is, how does he think? How does he speak? What does he speak? How does he express himself? Bhagavan answers to the contrary. He says by explaining how this person does not think, does not speak, does not express. So Bhagavan says, under sorrow, if Roger Federer has lost the match, does not express suffering. There is graciousness. You go to the net and hug the opponent happily. It's not possible that at that moment you're not, having sorrow. It's a defeat, right? The extreme of defeat, loss. But there is graciousness in acceptance. Under sorrow does not express suffering. Under joy does not express longing. Does not express himself as attached, fearful, or angry. Does not express herself with a sense of identification to that I and my, to that aham and mama. Does not rejoice in happy situations which are congenial, and does not hate in nadveshti, in uncongenial, unhappy situations. So Bhagavan gives 6 things that this person does not do in expression, in speaking. Like Sri Rama, one moment he gets up in the morning, adorns himself, beautiful vastras, he's going to get onto the throne, he's going to become the king of Ayodhya. Dasharatha has told him that today is your coronation. The entire country is celebrating. And the next moment, he has to remove all those, wear his, lion cloth and go to Vanvas. Through both of these, exactly the same characteristics, the same traits. Balanced, equipoised. When you are going through, like the reason we are having, one of the reasons we are having this 3-week break is because I'm going on this trek in the mountains. When you are climbing, it seems like really difficult, these mountain, hill after hill, mountain after mountain. It's very, very strenuous. But once you go on top and look down, these mountains look like mounds after you have traversed them. They look like undulations. So while you're traversing them and after you're traversing them, looking at these as the same, because they are the same. They didn't change their nature. Our perspective is what has changed. And the third question, Bhagavan continues to answer. Now we will recite from 58 to 63, all 6 verses.
Yada samharate chayam bhurmunganiva sarvashaha indriyanindriyartebhyah tasya prajna pratishtita vishaya vinivartante niraharasya dehinah rasavarjam rasopyasya param drishtva nivartate yatato hyapi kaunteya Purushasya vipashchitaha इन्द्रियाणि प्रमादीनि हरन्ति प्रशवं मनः तानि सर्वाणि संयम्य युक्त आसीत मत्परः वशे हि यस्येन्द्रियाणि तस्य प्रज्ञा प्रतिष्ठिता ध्यायतो विषयान् पुंसः सङ्गस्तेषुपजायते सङ्गात् सञ्जायते कामः कामात् क्रोधो विजायते क्रोधात् भवति सम्मोहः सम्मोहात् स्मृतिविभ्रमः स्मृतिभ्रंशात् बुद्धिनाशो बुद्धिनाशात् प्रणश्यति.
So the next question, what did Arjuna ask? The previous question was, how does he? Kim Prabhashita. Now it is Kim Asita. How does he sit? How does he sit means not to be taken literally, like I said. Okay, he sits in Samadhi. He doesn't sit in Sri Shasana. Okay, the question essentially means, how does this person relax? How does this person absorb? Now, how does he disengage? And then next question will come, how does he re-engage? So Bhagavan's answer to this, in verse 58, Bhagavan says, this person withdraws from the sense objects with ease, like a tortoise. We have seen a tortoise that just goes in. All the limbs of tortoise in one flash together in synchrony with each other, they just go in. Similarly, this person, all faculties, everything together, all of them in synchrony with each other, with ease, he is able to withdraw. In verse 59, Bhagavan says, objects of the senses turn away. Sense objects turn away. Okay, which sense objects is what? The object of my sense. The object of my taste is this, I'm having clove in my mouth now. That object is that clove. The taste is what I'm feeling, the taste that I'm feeling today when I'm having it. That object turns away, but the longing remains. Even if the object is not there, you will be imagining, hey, that clove was so nice and soothing in my... There's no clove around me. After 1 hour, I'll be walking outside. There's no clove there. I have not taken it in my pocket. I'll be imagining that soothing sensation in my throat. That longing remains, he says. But Bhagavan says that for this person of steady wisdom, the longing is not there. When the clove is there, he is okay with it. When it is not there, he is okay. When the Rama, Sri Rama, the kingdom is there, okay. Kingdom is not there, he has to go to Vanvas, okay. So the longing is not there. And then Bhagavan says in verse 60, even when this mind is controlled, and this is controlled through effort, it doesn't happen on its own. It requires a lot of effort. You have to keep reinforcing. When it is controlled in effort, the senses take the mind away. It is like daylight robbery. Everyone is watching and the daylight robbers come and rob the bank vault and go away. In broad daylight, in the sight of everyone. Similarly, when the security guard is there, when the other people are there. Similarly, when you have the sadhana chatushtayam, the viveka vairagya, when you have the samadhi shakta sanpatti, control of the mind, control of the senses, all of that. Even when you have all of that, even then, when that viveka guard is there, when the vairagya people are there, this bank robber comes and takes your mind away. The mind gets stolen by the senses. And what does this the pragya do in that kind of a situation? Bhagavan gives a beautiful solution. And that solution is Yukta Asita Matparaha. In verse 61, Bhagavan says he makes the mind even more stiller, even more calmer, even more focused, even more steadfast, deeper with all these disturbances. So it's like that security guard, the bank robbers are coming. So if they rob the bank and go away, security guard is standing, it's stolen. But if the security guard takes a stand, I will not let you go. I am going to single-handedly stop this robbery. And guess what? Next day he'll be on the newspaper saying, this brave guard Because of him, he stopped the robbery. Similarly, Bhagavan says this person of steady wisdom gets deeper into whatever he was. Reinforces, goes deeper. And what is the technique to go deeper? Yukta asita matparaha. Intently studied in me the higher ideal. Holding on to the Lord, holding on to the higher ideal. Holding on to the higher gives the strength to let go of the weaker. This security guard who takes a determined stand that I am not going to allow this robbery to take place has let go of his fear that the robbers might harm him. So holding on to the higher gives the strength, the courage, the ability to let go of the weaker. So Bhagavan says, in that moment, when these senses are, in your presence, in the presence of Viveka, in the presence of the Sadhana Chatushtayam, even though you are steady, when they are taking away, when they are robbing your mind away, hold on to me. And when you hold on to me, you will be secure. And then he continues in verses 62 and 63. Why does this mind has to be mastered in addition to controlling the senses? Otherwise, the senses will rob away the mind. Why does it have to be mastered? Because Bhagavan gives the ladder of fall. If you don't do it, the risk is that you will get into the ladder of fall. And what is this ladder of fall? So if you are allowing the mind to be taken away by the senses, which means you are thinking about the sense objects. So I am walking and I'm thinking about the cloak. So that is the first step of the ladder of fall. That leads to Sangaha. Sangaha is attachment to that object. So I'm not focusing on that cool air on me. I'm still thinking about the cloak. It's a pleasure-seeking propensity. Sangaha. That pleasure-seeking propensity leads to desire, kama. That sense of I want. Now there are two ways this can go, the result. If kama gets fulfilled, then you want more of it. Greed, lobha. If kama does not get fulfilled, then it leads to anger, krodha. If greed gets fulfilled, it leads to madha or pride. I got it. I wanted to become, the president. I became the president. And if greed doesn't get fulfilled, if lobha doesn't get fulfilled, it leads to matsarya, jealousy. Like right now, Trump is jealous of Biden. And if krodha, what does it lead to? It leads to sammoha, which is delusion. All three actually, madha, matsarya, krodha, all three lead to sammoha. So Bhagavan says, krodhat bhavati sammoha. But we also have to understand it as madat bhavati sammoha, matsaryat bhavati sammoha. So Bhagavan says, krodhat bhavati sammoha. Krodha leads to delusion. Delusion leads to smriti bramshat, memory loss. You forget about, what other things the steadfastness that you had learned. That leads to buddhi nasha, which is loss of discrimination, loss of clarity. And that then Bhagavan says leads to pranashyati. Bhagavan calls it pranashyati. Pranashyati means it perishes. What perishes? That parama purushartha, that happiness, that deep happiness, long-lasting happiness, happiness that touches the core, happiness that is there for a longest period of time. That perishes. And on the last question, Arjuna's last question, which is, how does this person re-engage? Bhagavan first addresses the seeker and then he addresses the master. There are two levels. So you can be a Sthita Pragya even while you are a seeker. And you are a Sthita Pragya anyway when you are a master. So he addresses this in two levels. Verses 64 to 68, he talks about the seeker, and verses 69 to 71, he talks about the master. How does the seeker re-emerge and re-engage after absorption, and how does the master re-emerge and re-engage after absorption? So for the seeker, we will go through verses 64 and 65.
रागद्वेषवियुक्तैस्तु विषयानिन्द्रियश्चरन् आत्मवश्यैर्विधेयात्मा प्रसादमधिगच्छति प्रसादे सर्वदुःखानां हानिरस्योपजायते प्रसन्नचेतसो ह्यासु बुद्धिपर्यावतिष्ठते.
So essentially, Bhagavan is saying, self-control person. How can you be ragadvesha vivyuktaitu? By being self-controlled. The self-controlled person moving away from raga and dvesha with the senses under control, moving away from the objects, free from both raga and dvesha. Raga and dvesha is what? Attraction and repulsion. Free from all of that. When you are free from raga and dvesha, when you are free from attraction and repulsion, you attain the samaha, equipoise. And when you attain this equipoise with this state, then the sense organs which will steal away your mind otherwise, they are not impediments. They actually become instruments which will help the person to gain transcendental experience. So the same, like the bank security guard, when that person holds on to the higher, the same elements that could have become, prevented him from performing his duty, those same elements come under help to help him perform the duty. The same eyes which would have looked for the escape route will look for the route from where the robbers cannot escape. Otherwise, you know what he would have done? He would have looked for his own escape route. But just that change of mindset, it will look at how the robber cannot escape. So the same instruments become an asset rather than a liability. And then in verse 65, Bhagavan says, when this purity is there, when this serenity is there, then the wisdom becomes firm. And when the wisdom becomes firm, the sorrows are destroyed. When the sorrows are destroyed, the happiness replaces the sorrow. The good code replaces the bad code. And for the established, for the master, we'll recite verses 69 to 71.
या निशा सर्वभूतानां तस्यां जागर्ति संयमी यस्यां जागृति भूतानि सा निशा पश्यतो मुनेः आपूर्यमानामचलप्रतिष्ठां समुद्रमापा प्रविशन्ति यद्वत् तद्वत् कामायं प्रविशन्ति सर्वे न शान्तिमाप्नोति न कामकामी विहाय कामान्य सर्वान् पुमांश्चरति निःस्पृहः निर्ममो निरहङ्कारः स शान्तिमधिगच्छति.
So Bhagavan says that what is night for all human beings? Sanisha, what is night for all human beings? For this person who is steady, for that person, it is daytime. In that night, this person who has equipoise keeps awake. When everybody is awake, when it is daytime, that is night for this person. Basically here, what night means, darkness. Darkness means ignorance. So in the surrounding ignorance, what is ignorance for everybody? For this sage, Munehe, in that presence, this person is awake to the reality, to the truth. And then Bhagavan continues, the ocean, it is always in the brim, filled to the brim. And yet it does not overflow and flood the land, even though more and more water keeps entering it. All the time there are rivers flowing into the ocean. But is the ocean entering the land? As much as the water in the ocean does not go up or down, depending on how much water enters into it, what we think of sorrow, what we think of joy, that sorrow does not grieve the jnani, and that joy does not exhilarate the jnani. And such a person, he attains that equanimity. And finally, Bhagavan says that this man, this person, this human being moves about in the world, abandoning, naturally not having it, naturally giving up, naturally tyaktva, all the desires, and goes about her work, free from longing and attachments. Giving up the notion of I and mine, giving up the sense of I and what I want, without identification to the ego. And when there is no identification to the ego, there is no ego. Shantim adhigacchati. This person attains peace. That is how Bhagavan finishes chapter 2. So we will just quickly, a concise way, if we have to state this concisely, Arjuna, these are very important, Arjuna's questions and Bhagavan's answers. Question 1, what is the nature of a man of realization in Samadhi? Bhagavan's answer is stillness of the mind, fulfillment in the self, not depending on the outside. Second question, what is the nature of the man out of Samadhi? Second question, first part, how does she respond? Bhagavan's answer, free of attachment, free of fear, free of anger. In sorrow, no expression of suffering. In joy, no expression of longing. Not having this overpowering sense of identification. Neither revels in what is conducive to the person, nor reviles or hates in what is not conducive to the person. How does this person reabsorb? The second part of that question. That person reabsorbs effortlessly, like a tortoise shrinks its limbs into the shell. And how does this person re-engage, walk about? Having risen above the desires, having risen above the attachment, having got above the sense of fulfillment through the three gunas, this person gets free of identification and ego. And thereby, this person, Sthita Pragya, attains peace. Shantim adhigacchati, becomes a Jivan Mukta. Thank you. Hari Om.
Asato ma satsamaya tamaso ma jyotirgamaya mrityorma amritam gamaya. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Namevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om. Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om.
Thank you, Hari Om. Any thoughts, comments, questions? So thank you all. Have a very good holiday season. This is the time when everyone is relaxing. And hopefully 2021 will bring us much better surrounding environment. The object world. 2020 was a crazy year. Hopefully 2021 will be a much more summer year. Samaha. So with those wishes, Happy New Year, everyone. And we'll meet then in the first week of January with chapter 6. We'll start with chapter 6. Thank you. Hari Om.